Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to deconstruct an absolutely wild story about how a simple act of kindness, basically a sympathy card, somehow spiraled into a massive international war that completely reshaped an entire region.
So how in the world does that even happen, right? Well, let's dive right in, because this is a truly bizarre chain of events that kicks off not with an invasion or some big threat, but with the death of a king and an attempt to just offer condolences.
All right, so here's where it all starts. The king of the Ammonites dies. Over in Israel, King David remembers that the old king was good to him, so he sends a diplomatic mission to the new king, Hanun, basically to say, hey, sorry for your loss. You know, a totally standard friendly move.
And this, right here, this is the moment everything goes wrong. You have this complete and total disconnect. On one side, David's intention is crystal clear. I want to show kindness to honor my friendship with his dad. But on the other side, Hanun's commanders are just dripping with paranoia, whispering in his ear, "Don't you see? This is a trick. They're here to spy on us." It's a classic case of how suspicion can create the very disaster it fears.
So, King Hanun listens to this terrible, paranoid advice, and he doesn't just send David's guys away, he publicly humiliates them in the most offensive way he can think of. Shaving off half a man's beard was a sign of incredible dishonor, and cutting their robes like that, well, that was meant to expose them to utter ridicule. This wasn't just rude, this was a major international insult.
Okay, so you've just committed this huge diplomatic blunder. You've poked a very powerful bear. The smart move would be to apologize, right? Try to smooth things over? Well, that's not what the Ammonites did. Instead, they chose to double down, hard.
They knew they had crossed a line. The phrase used is that they realized they had become obnoxious to David, which is a polite way of saying they knew they'd made a powerful enemy and that war was now pretty much inevitable. So what's the response? Prepare for that war.
And they don't just rally their own troops. Oh no, they go shopping for an army. They hire a massive mercenary force, well over 33,000 professional soldiers from all the neighboring Aramean kingdoms. This makes it clear, they weren't planning for a small border dispute, they were gearing up for total war.
Word of this massive hired army gets back to King David, and of course, he's not going to just sit and wait. He sends out his entire military force under the command of his best general, Joab. But when Joab gets to the battlefield, he finds himself in a really bad spot.
It's a general's worst nightmare. He's walked right into a textbook military trap. The Ammonite army is dug in at their city gate in front of him, and that huge force of Aramean mercenaries is in the open country behind him. He's caught in a pincer, about to be attacked from both sides at once.
So what do you do when you're caught in a pincer? Well, if you're Joab, you fight a pincer with the pincer. It's brilliant. He splits his army in two. He takes the elite soldiers and turns to face the bigger threat, the Arameans. Meanwhile, his brother Abishai takes the rest of the army to hold off the Ammonites. It's a huge risk, but the entire plan hinges on that last step, their pledge to rescue each other if either one starts to get overwhelmed.
And this right here is the heart of the whole strategy. It's more than just tactics. It's a plan built on pure trust. Joab says this to his brother, and you can just feel the weight of it. Everything depended on them having each other's backs. And at first, the plan works perfectly. Joab advances on the Arameans, and they just break and run. They barely put up a fight. So when the Ammonites see their high-priced mercenaries fleeing the field, they lose their nerve too and retreat back into their city. So for the moment, the threat seems to be gone. The enemy is scattered, Joab's army is safe, and he heads back home to Jerusalem. But here's the thing. This victory was kind of an illusion. The Aramean army wasn't really defeated, they were just scattered, and you can bet their king was not happy about being humiliated.
So the Aramean High King, Hadadezer, he decides to go all in. This is about his reputation now. He gathers all of his vassal armies, even calling in troops from across the Euphrates River to form a new, even bigger army. And he puts his top commander, Shobak, in charge. The stakes just got a whole lot higher.
When David hears about this new, massive threat on his border, he realizes this is no longer a job for a general. This is an existential threat to his kingdom. So he decides it's time for the king himself to take command.
And this is a huge moment. David gathers all of Israel. We're not just talking about the professional army anymore. This is a full-scale national mobilization. He personally leads them across the Jordan River to meet this threat head-on.
The battle that happens next isn't really a battle. It's a total annihilation. The victory for Israel is absolute. It starts with the Arameans' most feared weapon, their elite chariot corps. 700 of those units were completely wiped out.
And it did not stop there. The Aramean infantry was just devastated. 40,000 foot soldiers were killed. This wasn't just a defeat, this was the crippling of an entire nation's military power for a generation.
In the final nail in the coffin, Shobach, the commander of the entire Aramean army, was struck down and died right there on the battlefield. With their elite units gone, their infantry shattered, and their leader dead, the Aramean will to fight was completely broken.
So what does this all mean? Well, this huge war, which all started from one bad, paranoid decision, ended up completely redrawing the political map of the entire region. The fallout from this was enormous.
The shift in power was just dramatic. Look here, before the war, all the smaller Aramean kingdoms were loyal to Hadadezer. After this defeat, they all flipped. They made peace treaties with Israel and became their subjects. Israel went from being one of several key players to the undisputed dominant power in the region.
And this was the final blow for the Ammonites, the people who started this whole mess. Their most powerful ally wasn't just defeated, they were now aligned with their enemy. The final result is stated so simply: the Arameans were now afraid to ever help the Ammonites again.
And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. This entire region-altering war, it wasn't really started by an invading army or some great act of aggression. It was all lit by the spark of fear-based advice from a few commanders, which just goes to show you that sometimes the most dangerous weapon in the world isn't a sword, but a whisper of paranoia in a ruler's ear.